Hey everyone, and thank you for joining me today. Today, everyone is celebrating the new year. We have welcome in 2024. January 1st comes in the middle of a winter season, but in all actuality, the new year starts at the beginning of spring, not in the middle of winter. We currently use the Gregorian calendar, which was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582 to modify the Julian calendar, which was the calendar that the Romans used. I was born in September, and I was told that I was born in the ninth month, but septem means seven in Latin. September is really the seventh month. Why are we being told that September is the ninth month? October, it is considered the 10th month in the Gregorian calendar, but octo actually means eight. Remember the octo mom? She had eight babies at once, not 10. In the Gregorian calendar, November means 11, but novum actually means 9 in Latin. November is actually supposed to be the ninth month, not September. Dec means 10, not 12. So it is not really the 12th month for December. December is the 10th month. Remember the word decade? 10 years, decimal represents the number 10. The Romans only had 10 months on their calendar initially. It started in March and ended in December. December was at one time the 10th month. Then the Roman ruler Numa Pompilius is credited with adding in January and February because over time astrologers realized there was a gap of time that was unaccounted for, and that's why January and February were added. But the ancient Hebrew Israelites would observe the sky in order to keep up with the seasons and keep track of the times. They knew that the new year began in spring when new flowers began to blossom. The earth is at rest in the winter, and just like bears hibernate, parts of the earth appear to be hibernating also. Nothing grows in the winter. The earth is at rest and there is even less daylight. Now, when I say nothing grows in the winter, I don't mean absolutely nothing, but overall, you will rarely find plants growing in the winter. In the winter, the harvest is over, plants have died, flowers are no longer, they're no longer in bloom, many fruit trees have withered, most flowers, fruits and vegetable trees have stopped producing a harvest during the winter time because death has taken place, and death means the end of a cycle. But in the spring, there is a renewal of energy, and the spring is the beginning of a new cycle. The earth appears to wake up from her rest. There is a newness that brings about a refreshing change of nature. Flowers begin to bloom again, insects begin to hatch, birds fly back around, animals come out of hibernation, lakes and streams begin to thaw out to give water to the people and the animals. Like the earth and the animals, humans are also supposed to rest during the winter because we have three other seasons in which we can work. Winter represents the end of the year and the end of a cycle. Spring represents the beginning of a new one. The end of March and the beginning of April are the times that's the time that the real new year begins. So why are we observing the wrong times? Well, by using the Gregorian calendar, the entire world is observing a deception. We are literally on demon time. For example, the month of January is named after Janus, a two-faced god representing doors, gates, and portals. Remember, in previous calendars, January was not the first month, according to the initial Julian calendar, which was the Roman calendar, but that was changed. And January and February were included. But the Mayan calendars in the old Sanskrit text do not have January as the first month. Again, the month of January is named after Janus, the Roman god of new beginnings. And when you look at his face, one appears to be looking forward while the other one is looking backward. As a result, he was said to be able to see the future and the past. Next is the month of February, also named after a pagan god. February is named after Februa, who is the Roman goddess of love and purification. This is probably why Valentine's Day is in February, because of Februa. the Roman goddess of love. And when you observe Valentine's Day, you're paying homage to the Roman goddess of love as if she's responsible for you finding your mate and falling in love. March is named after Mars, and they've also named a planet after Mars. Mars is the Roman god of war. The Romans loved Mars and they loved war because they were a barbaric people who loved to dominate and colonize. And it's ironic that March is the month that Julius Caesar was assassinated. And again, it's also ironic that the month of March is named after the god of war because March is when the Romans would actually begin their military campaigning again after their winter rest. This is how you know that Jesus was not born at the end of December. Remember Luke 2 4 through 9, when the Bible tells us that Mary and Joseph went to Bethlehem to be registered, and Mary was pregnant with Jesus or Yeshua? They were registering and being counted by the Romans. And while in Bethlehem, she gave birth to her baby Yeshua. The world knows him as Jesus. Well, the world celebrates his birthday in December, right, for Christmas, his birthday. But in December, around Christmas, the time that we celebrate, well, the world celebrates Jesus' birthday, the Romans would cease from military campaigns during the winter, and they would resume in March when it was warmer. So they likely would not have been registering anyone in December. They likely registered them in the fall before the winter came because the winter snow and freezing temperatures made it difficult to maneuver and travel. And they didn't even like going to war during the winter months, and they only did it if it was necessary, if they felt that it was necessary. So if you're not celebrating Jesus' birthday in December because his birthday is not really in December, whose birthday are you really celebrating? Could it be the birthday of a pagan god, since Jesus was likely not born in December? That's food for thought. Anyway, this entire world is full of pagan worship, including our Gregorian calendar. April is named after Aphrodite, also known as Venus. So we have another planet named after these pagan gods. She's the Greek goddess of love and beauty. Now remember, Februa was the Roman goddess of love, and Aphrodite is the Greek goddess of love. Some say that April is named after the Latin word aperire, which means to open. But the Greek and Roman cultures were full of pagan worship that is still celebrated by their descendants today. When Pope Gregory introduced the Gregorian calendar, why didn't he change the names of the months so that they no longer be the names of pagan gods? As a Catholic pope, his religion is supposedly Christianity. So why didn't he change the previous names of the months from pagan gods to some of the names in the Bible? So instead of the month of March being named after Mars, he could have said the month of March is going to be named after the month of March is going to be named after Mark, and Mark was one of Jesus's disciples. Interesting. Anyway, May is named after Maia, which means the great one, and I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. She's the Roman goddess of spring and the Italic goddess of growth. Again, another irony is that the Italic goddess of growth gets credit for growing things in the month of May. But the Lord has already designed the earth to grow and replenish itself during certain parts of the year naturally. These false demonic deities are acting like they're responsible for things growing in May or things growing in July or for harvest, and they're getting credit for it when the Lord naturally designed the earth to operate in that way. Okay, so moving on, we have June. June is named after Juno, and Juno is the head goddess and Jupiter's wife. Does Jupiter sound familiar? Isn't that also a planet? Juno is the principal goddess of the Roman pantheon, the goddess of marriage, childbirth, and the well being of women. So, whenever they wanted to get married or wanted to have a child, they would petition Juno. And Juno is also associated with the Greek goddess Hera. July is named after Julius Caesar. He was a Roman dictator. Before the Gregorian calendar, there was the Julian calendar, and July is named after Julius Caesar as well as the Julian calendar. He was deified and called the divine Julius. Now, August is named after Octavius Augustus Caesar, who succeeded Julius Caesar, and he was his great nephew, whom Julius Caesar adopted also as a son. And he was the first real Roman emperor. And when it comes to September through December, some say that September through December were originally named after Roman numbers in the Julian calendar, because Septem means 7, Octo means 8, Novum means 9, and Dec means 10. Although named after numbers, they're also supposedly dedicated to pagan gods, and this is all alleged. Everything that I'm saying practically is alleged. Let's just be safe and put it that way. September is supposedly dedicated to Set, an Egyptian god of the desert, storms, and chaos. October is supposedly dedicated to Octavia, the goddess of beauty, and she is also identified as Oshun, an African goddess of love, order, fertility, prosperity, and beauty. They really seem to be obsessed with beauty. Anyway, November is a little tricky because some sources say that November is named after Nimrod, king of Babylon. Remember him from the Tower of Babel, king of Babylon? Well, there are other sources that say in Roman art, November was typically associated with Isis. The festival of Isis began around October 28th and ended around November the 3rd. And that's around the time of Halloween. That's interesting. Anyway, Isis was an Egyptian goddess who was worshipped by the Romans, and Isis married her brother Osiris and had a son named Horus. And she is the goddess of magic, spells, and witchcraft. December is just as tricky as November. Some sources say that December is named after, not necessarily named after, but dedicated to Damien, who was supposed to be the son of Satan, and Damien's wife's name was Astarte. And many link Astarte with the celebration of Easter. She was the goddess of love and fertility. Hmm. So, um, that's interesting. And some say that December is associated with other gods. But the month of March, let's go back to March. The month of March is named after Mars, and so is one of the planets. So the question is, who named the planets? We know who named the months, but who named the planets? Well, Romans also named many of the planets. They named the solar system's biggest planet Jupiter, and Jupiter is supposedly the king of the Roman gods. The reddish color of the planet Mars led them to name it after their god of war. And I was thinking maybe because the red represented blood, I don't know. But Mercury supposedly makes a complete trip around the sun in just 88 Earth days. And it got its name from the fast moving messenger of the gods, Mercury. Saturn, you'll hear that name again. The solar system's second largest planet was named after their god, Saturn. The Romans named the brightest planet Venus for their goddess of love and beauty. Now, Uranus and Neptune were discovered after the invention of the telescope. And as we know, Pluto is no longer considered a planet. But even Pluto was named after a pagan god, the god of the underworld. Uranus and Neptune are also named after pagan gods. So, in addition to the months and planets being named after pagan gods, the days of the week are also named after pagan gods. While at one time, the days of the week were named after Greek gods, Eris, the god of war, Hermes, the divine trickster, Zeus, the sky and thunder god, Aphrodite, associated with love, pleasure, and lust, etc., Cronus, the father of Zeus. Now they are currently named after Germanic and Norse gods. So, all throughout the earth, these people were serving pagan gods. For most of history, the Hebrew Israelites, the real ones, were the only ones serving the Creator, Yah. Every other culture and group was serving a pagan god. And these generational curses have still been passed down to their descendants. When we're talking about the days of the week, Monday is named after the moon, Moon Day. Tuesday is named after Tyr, and Tyr is the Norse god of war. So Tyr's Day. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing these exactly right, but I'm doing the best I can. Okay, so here we go. Have you noticed that most of these male gods are about war? Most of the male gods are about war, and then the female gods are about beauty and love and fertility. So we have love and we have war. Those are opposites. So it's kind of like the energy is opposing. Male energy and female energy is an opposing energy, and it's not supposed to be that way. And that may be why males and females throughout history have opposed each other. And now, if you get on social media, you'll see males bashing females, females bashing males, males becoming females, females becoming males. So much confusion. The energy of these gods that a lot of people are, especially the ancestors back in the day, they served these gods. These gods were opposing each other, and the energy is still around. But anyway, we're going to go to Wednesday. Wednesday is named after Woden, Woden's Day, also known as Odin. Odin is associated with death, sorcery, frenzy, battle, war, etc. Thursday was Thor's Day, and Thor is associated with lightning, thunderstorms, sacred groves and trees, hollowing, and fertility. So you'll notice that these names of pagan gods are sometimes found in movies and even in video games. All right, Friday. Friday is named after Frigg. Frigg is also named after Frigga or Freya's day, and she operates in the same way as the Roman goddess Venus in some regards. And she is also associated with prophecy and clairvoyance. Because the entire world at one time served all of these pagan gods throughout history, you'll see that a lot of these gods have different names, or it's the same pagan god, they're just called by a different name. It's almost like they've changed their names over time, right, with the culture, but they're still the same, still that same spirit, same God. Saturn is, well, Saturday is Saturn's day, supposedly, which is the name of a pagan god and a planet, and he is associated with time, generations, wealth, abundance, disillusions, and agriculture. So whenever they wanted a big harvest, they would pray to one of the gods they would pray to would be Saturn. He was also celebrated during the December festivals, in which there was loud partying, drunkenness, and gift giving in December. Interesting. Sunday is Sun Day, the day they worship the sun, the S-U-N, not the S-O-N. So every time we say these months and days, we're calling on pagan gods. And if you notice, every month, every day is named after a pagan god, and that would be the god they worshiped on that day or throughout that month. The 12 months of the year are labeled after a specific deity that is supposed to be worshipped in that particular month. They've given each month a horoscope and have told people that the month they were born in means they will have a specific personality. But that's not true. The horoscopes are not based on your personality, but on the personalities of these pagan gods that represent each month. There are millions of people on earth that represent each of the months, and we are probably billions in some months, and we are all vastly different. Even though we may have been born in the same months, if you're wanting to know about your future, inquire of the Holy Spirit. You know, you really have to have a close connection to the Most High in this day and time in order to know what's going on, because this world is crazy, it's full of lies and deception. So if you want to observe the dates and times with more accuracy, just watch the animals and the earth and nature. When the sun goes down and the moon appears, nature is telling you to wind down and get ready for bed. The sun goes down earlier in the winter because in the winter you need more sleep. When springtime comes and the weather begins to warm up, the earth and animals are waking up and are more active, and you should be as well. In the summer, the sun stays out longer, which gives you more time to do your planting. In the fall, the weather begins to cool down, giving you a chance to harvest your food and store it in preparation for the winter. Galatians 4:6 through 11 says, And because ye are sons, God hath sent the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. 7. Wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son, and if a son, then an heir of God through Christ. So he's saying you're not a servant anymore, but you have been adopted as a son, and if you are now a son, then you are an heir of God through Jesus Christ. 8. Howbeit then, when ye knew not God, ye did service unto them which by nature are no gods. So basically, when you didn't know God, you were a servant of nature and the gods that represent nature. 9. But now, after ye have known God, or rather are known of God, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto ye desire again to be in bondage? So now that you know God, or rather that God knows you, you still turn away to worship the weak elements of nature? Do you desire to be in bondage to them again? 10. Ye observe days and months and times and years. 11. I am afraid of you, lest I have bestowed upon you labor in vain. So he's telling them that they're not supposed to be observing the days, months, times, and years in that way. Currently, the correct days, months, and years cannot be observed with a modern Gregorian calendar. We know that when spring comes, there's a newness. Therefore, this must be the start of a new year because there is a renewal of energy. And keep in mind that the new year doesn't start until around the end of March, beginning of April. This pagan beast system of the world has caused us to lose track of the right years because we're no longer keeping track of time like our ancestors did. Psalms 104:19. He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down. The Lord appointed the moon to tell us when seasons officially start and end. The moon changes with the seasons. For example, the moon rises between the southeast and northeast. If we consider full moons, then during the summer, the full moon will rise in the southeast. As we move into the autumn and winter, the full moon progressively rises further north. The moon has 8 lunar phases that repeat themselves every 29.5 days or once a month. The moon tells us the beginning and end of each month by the way that it changes through its phases. The Gregorian calendar is based off of 12 constellations, but there are actually 13 constellations. So instead of 12 months, there are many that dispute that there are actually supposed to be 13. In 1849, the French philosopher Auguste Comte proposed the 13-month positivist calendar, and he named all 13 months. Now, when you think about it, the biblical Hebrew Israelites observed the moon to know when seasons were about to change, as well as the temperature outside and the stars. The stars change in the sky depending on the season. Each star completes a full circle around the sky during the course of 1 year. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, to pluck up what is planted, which means harvest, a time to kill and heal, break down, build up, weep, laugh, mourn, dance, throw away stones, a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, to lose, to keep, and to throw away, a time to tear, a time to sow, a time to keep silent, and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Ecclesiastes 3:1 through 8. The dragon and the beast have changed everything, including our reference of time, to make it harder for the real Hebrew Israelites to observe feast days, holidays, prophecies. Plus, it promotes this pagan time system, as all of our days and months are named after pagan gods. They even associate the concept of time with the pagan god Kronos, which is where the word chronicle and chronological come from. He's often depicted in pictures turning the zodiac wheel. If you've made it this far in the video, then you've made it to the end, and thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Shalom.